Well, I have just come back from my short trip to Bucharest, and I thought that I'd make a video for you guys because why not? And today I have a very special clock to show you, since it's one of my rarest clocks and one which is most dear to me. This is a very rare Manufrance box clock, which was made sometime between 1936 and 1945. It has a plain Art Deco style case, which looks quite nice. And it plays an unusual melody. It does not play Westminster, but it plays what is known to be as the Saint Etienne Chimes, composed by Reinaldo Hahn in 1936 for these clocks. And before I'll start boring you with some more details, I'll let you hear the chimes. But I'm warning you that this is not the best sounding example out there. It sounds a little flat and the strike is a little out of tune, so yeah, here it goes. And those were the Saint Etienne chimes. They do sound quite nice, and I was planning to do something about some of the rods being flat, but I don't really know how to change that, and I don't want to damage them or anything about this clock in general, so I think I'll just leave it as it is, since it's not too bad. And now would be the best time to grab some popcorn, since I'm gonna start telling you the story of this clock and some general info about MF, so get comfy. As you can probably tell, MF stands for Manufrance, and Manufrance is the short term for Manufacture Française d'Armes et Cycles, which basically means the French company of firearms and bicycles. Yeah, they didn't specialize in producing clocks, they didn't even make their own movements in fact, and were best known for their hunting rifles and bicycles, as the name indicates. This company was based in Saint-Étienne, a town in France, and it was founded in 1885, and I believe it's still around today. Manufrance became quite a prominent name in the French industry, and eventually started selling all sorts of household items, including clocks, which they did not make themselves. They bought movements and chime blocks from various different makers, and I am not sure about the cases. I have no idea where they got them from or if they made them in-house, But yeah, that's the general idea. They bought movements and cases separately. Most commonly, these clocks use either Girod or Odo movements. Some of the later ones also have FFR movements. And I recently discovered some earlier clocks from I'd say around 1910 that use Japy Frère and Junghans movements. And if you don't believe me, here are some pictures. I'll let you have a look at them. And yeah, this is quite unexpected. Anyways, this particular clock uses a Girod movement. It's the same movement as in my dual chime Girod, 8-day running triple spring movement, which of course has a custom-made chime barrel, which is huge. Out of all the models that they made, this is by far the most common, and it is known as the Type C, as indicated by this little sticker that the clock has on the inside. MF Carillon Type C. And it also has some numbers, which I can't quite read. I think that's 8437. Also, this clock thankfully retained its original instruction manual, which I will show you in a bit. And here it is, the original instruction manual of the MF chiming clock. I keep it here in this picture frame because I want to have it on proper display next to the clock, and it's also protected from external factors that can harm it. And for the purpose of recording this video, I have taken it out to show it to you in better detail. You might also try to read what it says in here, if you know French of course, but yeah, basically it tells you how to unpack the clock and set it up, and other general facts such as how to set the time on it, how to silence it, regulating it, and stuff like that. There's the section about setting it to the time, regulating, and silencing the chimes. And on the back side, give me 1 second to turn this around, it has a short troubleshooting guide for various small problems, such as the pendulum hitting the rods, the hands colliding with each other, I believe. I don't really know, but yeah, this is basically for troubleshooting the clock. There you can see the tension springs for the hammers being misplaced. It tells you how to put them back in the correct position. And also, if the clock was defective from the very beginning, they offered to give you a new one in exchange, which is very kind of them. Moving back to the clock, here is a closer look at the MF logo. And now, I might as well show you an interesting feature that this clock has, and my dual chime Girod also has, that I forgot to present. So, let's just say that you're casually setting the time on this clock, and you remembered that it was 2 p.m. But then, you checked the time, and oh well, apparently it's 3 p.m. And since you don't really feel like going through all the quarters again, you can just do this. And if you trigger the striking, the clock actually strikes 3, which means that the snail is perfectly synchronized with the hour hand. This is a common feature on French clocks. Many manufacturers use this, including Girod, Odo, and Vedette. And I forgot to show this thing on my Girod and on my dual chime Vedette, so I might as well show it here. The mechanism is very simple. Basically, the snail has a little pin on it, and the hour hand has a slot cut in it. So yeah, it can basically only go into one position. The pin slides into the slot, and yeah, if you try to move the hour hand, the snail is friction fit on the hour wheel, and it just moves around with the hour hand if you turn it. It's very simple, really. And since I promised you a story, I might as well tell it to you. So, I first saw this clock about 3 years ago. I had just met my clock collector friend in town, and he invited me over to his place to see what he had. And I was shocked because he had so many clocks that, I don't know, I couldn't believe it was true. In the main room, I saw this clock hanging on a wall, and I wasn't sure at that time if MF also made Westminster-only clocks, so I asked him if he could demo it for me because it was quite hard to reach. And, to my surprise, it was not. It was an actual MF Saint Etienne chiming box clock, and I was completely taken by surprise to find one of these in this small town I live in. I then asked him if it was for sale, and he thought about it a bit and then said that it's the only clock of this type that he has, and he's not ready to let it go quite yet. And since that day, I started dreaming about getting this clock, until this thing came in, and I actually got it that same year on my birthday, and it's the most awesome thing ever. But yeah, every time I went there, I checked to see if this clock was still there. 2 years have passed, and various other clocks of his made it to my collection. One day, in early March 2025, I went to visit him since he was a little sick. And I noticed that this clock was missing from the main clock room. So I went like, wait, what the heck? And I got a little scared, since I thought something might have happened to it. Since my birthday was coming in a few weeks, I decided to start looking for a clock to get myself, since that's what I do every year. And I went up his attic, where I found this thing about 2 years ago. And while I was looking around on one of the shelves, I noticed that he had something that looked like, well, this. And I was like, no way I actually have a shot at getting it. So then I went downstairs and I asked him about this clock, to which he replied, oh yeah, that's just an old Vedette I have. I believe it has 10 rods and it is quite rare. And I was like, no way this guy actually forgot what this clock was. So I asked him again, man, are you sure this is a Vedette? And I started telling him about what this clock was, since I didn't want to trick him into believing it was something else. I wanted to get this clock as fair as I could. And after all my explanation, he said, well, I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure it's a Vedette. In fact, I can show you. So we both went upstairs. He took this clock, took a quick look at it, and was like, oh yeah, just as I remember it. It's just my Vedette. You can have it for 80 if you want. And I was completely shocked, because I considered that to be a pretty cheap price for what this clock is. And after that, I immediately knew which clock I was going to get for my birthday, and the days went by, and we eventually reached a Friday afternoon, 2 days before my birthday, and I went to pick this clock up after school. And then, disaster struck. I was all hyped up to get it, and when I arrived at his house and told him that I came to pick this clock up, He turned to me and said, "I'm sorry, mate. Somebody just came in and took this clock with them." I couldn't believe my ears, so I went in a rush upstairs and I fell on my knees when I actually saw that this clock was gone. He then came to me and said that I shouldn't worry, because God had something prepared for me. To which I said, "Thanks, mate." And instead, I bought my Kinsley Westminster chiming mantle clock. On my way home, my girlfriend texted me. She was like, "Hey Luca, how you doing?" To which I said, "Well, not too well, since I just lost one of the greatest clocks I could have ever gotten." And then she said, "Oh, you mean this?" And she sent me a photo of this exact clock on her table. And I froze in shock. I couldn't understand what just happened. How did she get this clock? How did she know that I was after this exact clock? And most importantly, how did she know where the guy lived? And then it hit me. Because earlier on the same day, we met at school. During one of our breaks, she asked me if I had found anything that I want to get for my birthday. To which I said, "Oh yeah, there is this thing." And I showed her a picture of this clock and a short clip of the chimes. She then said, "Oh, that's so nice. Is this from your collector friend or something? Where was he from again?" And then we had a little chit-chat, and through it, she subtly asked me where he lived. I gave her some rather imprecise indications, and somehow, through these, she found him, got this clock, and left right before I got there. This is the best and most amazing surprise gift that I have ever received in my entire life. I just can't believe it got to me the way it did. The story sounds so weird. It sounds like it came straight out of some cheap movie or something, I don't know. But it is actually true, and that's why I want to thank my girlfriend deeply for giving me this. I know she's probably not watching, but thank you. This is now one of the clocks which is most dear to me. And that is the story of this clock, and that totally didn't take about 2 hours to record. Before showing you the movement, I might as well tell you that this thing is not quite perfect yet, and I still need to do some stuff to it. Mainly to the case. I want to clean it up a little more, get it into a little bit of a better shape. And aside from that, you might notice that one of the silencers is missing from the strike side. It's down here because while I was testing it a few months ago, I had to unsilence it one morning and the rope snapped on me, so I have to retie a knot in there, which shouldn't be too hard. It's not the original rope after all, so yeah. Also, you might notice that there are no screws holding the seatboard in place. That's because originally this was mounted way further out, and you can actually see where the central arbor made a hole into the glass. Like there's a small point right there. There it is. And now I need to drill some holes through the seatboard so that the screws can fit, because the original holes are further in. Further in? Yeah, further in that direction. And yeah, I need to sort that. And also sometimes when the clock is low on power, it gets into warning and never chimes. I don't know what's up with that. And now, finally, it is time to see what the movement inside this clock looks like. Okay, here's the movement inside my AMF Manufrance Welp clock, which was in fact made by Girod. It's not quite in the prime of its life, as you can see, and it has definitely seen better days. And I don't know, I might not have a degree in clockmaking or anything, but I'd say that this thing requires a tiny bit of a clean. Like, I don't know, I might not be right, but I just have a feeling that that's the case. So, yeah, just saying. And despite the current condition of the movement, this thing actually runs better than my other Girod, which has been cleaned, lubricated, and fully overhauled a few months ago, so I have no idea how that's possible. But, oh well. And another interesting fact about this movement is the fact that about 95% of the gold plating that can be seen on the movement is intact. Which is sadly not the case on my other Girod. That clock has about 30% of it left in there. I don't know, maybe even less. Okay, so here's the MF movement currently being rebuilt, and yeah, rate my setup, my clock cleaning setup. Yeah, I know it's already a 10 out of 10. It's awesome. And that's the rest of the clock. And after yesterday's hard work, there it is. The clock is running, and I managed to finish it just in time for the final clock collection video. Holy crap. I somehow pulled it off. And I'm making one more short clip because I want to show you how the chimes operate. Yeah, I'm sorry that the hammers weren't adjusted properly, but the seat board has to be in a very specific position. Also, this clock has one of the worst problems that a clock collector can encounter, at least in my eyes, and that is uneven teeth on the escape wheel. If you stand next to this clock and you closely listen to its ticking, you might notice that at some point it gets out of beat and then it comes back to normal. Nearly half of the escape wheel teeth are shorter or bent. And all that I can do is try to look for a spare movement to harvest a new escape wheel, because I cannot fix that with the skill and the tools that I have at this moment. I'm not gonna wait to show that to you now because it's gonna take too long and this video is already long enough. And also, I do have the regulating nut. I found it in the bottom of the case and the bob is pretty much friction fit, so I just have to put it on. And before you say anything, this is the way I got the clock. This problem didn't appear after my service. The clock normally stays right there, like where that gap is. Most of you probably know that. But I decided to bring it to my room because I kind of miss the chimes, and seeing this clock in general, as I said before, I don't run it all that much, and yeah, it's gonna be staying in here for a few days. And I think that's all that I have to say for this video. Thank you all so much for sticking around with me, and I want to apologize if this is another half an hour long video. I don't know yet, but I'm pretty sure it is. And as always, a shorter version will be released. So yeah, I was Luca, I hope you liked the clock, and until next time, take care. Bye bye.